Relax.
Perfect. All right. We're going live on Facebook, and this is the Children's Education Alliance of Missouri. And my name is Peter Franzen. I want to welcome everybody who's been joining us for the past few weeks since we started this in March. And so far, I think we've had a good run and have really worked to bring you good information that parents can use, what's happening in education, how are we dealing with the crisis. And tonight, I want to remind you, as every night, that you can ask questions of our guests by putting your questions in the comments section, or if you have any resources that you want to share, we're continuing to build that out on our COVID page on seamteam.org. It's seamteam.org/COVID. And as always, we hope everyone is practicing CDC guidelines and trying to avoid participating, avoid going outside, extra trips, that we're following the hygiene guidelines to try and flatten this curve so that we can all begin to go back to something normal soon. So that's just my pitch. I just have to put that in there. I know you're probably doing that. That's a good thing. I just want you to know that we're all doing that. We're in this together, right? Isn't that what they're saying? It's true. It's impacting everyone differently. And I think, kids for sure have got to be having a hard time. We talked with a lot of parents, but certainly students who are home from school really unexpectedly. Well, tonight though, we have a special guest who has lived the life of an advocate and a change maker. While she was raising her 3 children in Washington, D.C., Virginia Walden Ford was shocked that so many children were forced to attend failing, crumbling schools simply because they lived in the wrong zip code. In fact, she was worried that her own son, William, was falling through the cracks of a system that just wasn't focused seemingly on the best interest of children. Well, in 1998, she took action, forming a grassroots organization called DC Parents for School Choice. And along with a group of dedicated parents, Virginia went door to door, neighborhood to neighborhood, recruiting and training other parents to stand up for their children's future. And in 2003, Virginia and her group of parent advocates succeeded in convincing Congress and President George W. Bush to enact the nation's first ever Opportunity Scholarship Program for low-income students, a program that set into motion really a complete overhaul of Washington, D.C.'s education system. Now, that part of Miss Virginia's life inspired a, based on a true story movie called Miss Virginia that premiered last October, and it's out now on Netflix. It aired on BET in March, and you can watch it. Hopefully you saw it last Thursday when we had a Miss Virginia Netflix party. She's the author of 2 books, and she shares her experiences and advice in her book, Voices, Choices, and Second Chances, How to Win the Battle to Bring Opportunity Scholarships to Your State. And it's available at your favorite bookseller. And her personal memoir, School Choice, A Legacy to Keep. And she's joining us from Arkansas, where she is safe and well during this epidemic. So hi, Miss Virginia, and welcome.
Hi.
And we barely got...
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you, and it's great to have you here. Last week we tried to get on. We had some trouble with Facebook getting on. This week I'm worried that our internet connection might not be the best, but this is the age of COVID, and people are learning to cope with virtual communication. So I hope people will stick in there with us and will ask questions, and we can get those relayed and have a good conversation. Now, Virginia, I already shared with you that in Missouri, our organization, SEAM, has been holding Miss Virginia movie screenings all around the state. We showed it in Springfield, Kansas City 3 times, Columbia, and St. Louis. So, there's a lot of love for you in Missouri, and I know people are interested to hear your take on the movie. So let's start there, if you don't mind. Um, can you can you just kind of put the movie in context for us, sort of in the context of your life, about what part of your life was that when that was happening, and who was that Miss Virginia, the one that we saw in the movie, that part of your life, as a parent, and yeah, just kind of if you could just put that movie in context for us. We're frozen. I don't know if we're frozen on Facebook or if we're just frozen.
Oh, absolutely. I was really proud when it took a long time to do it and to get it done, but it is really a true representation of the fight we went through, and I'm very pleased with it. After the scholarship program was passed in Congress, we didn't even stop. We were part of making sure that parents were able to continue to have the support they needed from us. So we actually signed up that in the first year or two, we signed up about 80% of the parents that were involved. We went from neighborhood to neighborhood with a team, myself and 4 or 5 others, with applications, with printers, portable printers, with somebody to notarize things, all kinds of things. And we took our teams around DC for our period. So I stayed involved until 2011 when I moved back to Arkansas.
And okay, and that's what I was going to ask. Did the you feel like so? And maybe you answered this. There was a little bit of a disconnect. Did the movie capture? I know it didn't capture every fact of what happened because, for example, I mean, and things are changed. Your son's name is actually William, not James. I mean, that's simple. But I imagine the timeline was a little compressed for a movie. How long did it actually take for you to get all that done?
Well, actually, the fight that's portrayed in the movie, it took a year. That was for real. Actually, 2003, we started talking to members of Congress and about possibly.
All right. On my end.
Exactly. I mean, of course, this is Hollywood movie. There were things in there that were different from what actually happened, but for the most part, everything did. They changed a few things, but you got to remember, my career spanned 20 years.
All right. I'm frozen. I don't know if Facebook is seeing either one.
In some earlier fights and put them in the movies. The young man that played my son, whose name is James in the movie, but his name is in reality. Um,
I'm reaching out to Facebook there in the comments section to find out if it's just me or if we're both frozen. Yeah, glitchy. Carmen, that's Carmen. Thanks, Carmen. So we do have great parents who are watching us, and it does show you as being a little frozen there, Virginia. So I'm not sure you can hear me right now. This is not what I envisioned for our Miss Virginia interview, a glitchy internet connection. Yes, and someone else is saying, yes, Peter, I think Miss Virginia is freezing on the viewer's end too. This is crazy because I have to tell you guys that I've had like 3 or 4 prep conversations with Miss Virginia that have been awesome, and why I wanted to interview her for you and get her on here with us is because she has such a rich life experience, both what we saw in the movie and what her life has been since then. Because since that time, and we'll ask her about this here in a second, I've got her in 2 places on my screen. Since that time, you know, she's continued this fight for student access. Virginia, are you back there? I see you twice on my screen now. Hi, Crystal. Hi, Carmen. Thanks for hanging in there. Come on, we're going to get this interview right. All right. Well, I'm disappointed with you. Trust me when I say that. Whoop. Let's see what happens. Oh, hi, Denisha. I know it may be the internet connection on her. And she is in Arkansas. I'm not saying anything about Arkansas. I have no idea what their internet connection is like. I'm sure it's fantastic. That's just it. So
Can you see me?
I can't, but I can hear you, which is awesome. Well, there you are. Can you hear me now, Virginia?
Okay.
Okay, you are a trooper. I can tell. This is clearly a battle-hardened advocate who knows how to make things work, and so that's how we're getting her here.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. I can hear you. Hi, Tim McGuire.
You're getting.
You're getting.
All right.
All right. I'm back.
So, all right. Well, you know what? And Carmen is out there praying for us. So I feel like, you know, we have God on our side to get this interview in. And so I was giving them a little bit of a, oh, you're not frozen yet, right? I was giving them a little bit of a rundown, Virginia, what I knew. I want to remind people, if you have questions for Virginia, to put them in the comments section, and especially if you have questions for her. Virginia, what happened in the years after the movie? And how much longer did you live in DC after William graduated? And he actually ended up graduating from a charter school in DC, is that right? All right. All right. What time is it? You know what? It's only 7:13. Will you guys sit tight. Is this reasonable? Can you do this on Facebook Live? Can you just like mess with it? But don't go anywhere. I'm going to get Virginia on the phone here, which I think is going to be a better option, and at least we can hear her. So sit tight. I'm going to end this meeting right quick, and I'm going to reach out to her. Oh, can you guys see that? My chat. This is how we problem solve on the fly. You guys are the best. Sit tight for 1 second. All right. All right. Sorry, I'm getting like 50 different text messages here. She's connecting on her Galaxy before I had a chance to call her. I know. Are you on your phone or? I can see you now, Virginia. Can you see me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep, perfectly.
Okay. All right. I'm doing this on my phone. Just my computer is not working. So, all right.
All right, we're back. All right, no, it's okay. We're gonna make it work. So, Virginia, what I was asking is, what happened in the years after the movie? The movie kind of concludes with William graduating, and I know that he graduated from a charter school in the DC area, right? And for you and him, what happened? And your other kids were already grown by that time.
Yes.
And so, what was it like after that?
Well, William, like you just said, he ended up going back to charter school too. In actuality, the legislation didn't get passed in time for him.
All right.
So after it took much longer. It appears that he was still in school when it passed, but he really wasn't. He had grown up, and he had graduated by then. But we didn't do this just for William. We did it for all children. So after the legislation passed, we worked with Congress to make sure that it was implemented well, and that we were able to go into communities and get people signed up, because the opposition was very good at going into communities and telling parents not to sign up. So we actually took teams of volunteers into the communities and signed people up in their homes and community centers and churches. We even had set up some curbs in front of buildings and sidewalks. Anywhere parents would see us, they would come and sign their children. And we did that for a couple of years. And so that's what happened. And so hundreds and thousands of kids signed up. I think the first year there were 7,000 children that signed up for the program. And the Washington Scholarship Fund was the original administrator of the program. So we worked side by side with them to make sure that the children were in schools. We worked with parents, we were in workshops, we went in communities and talked to them about what it's like to be in a private school. We talked to them about the schools that they chose. We worked with the schools to make sure that our children were helped when they got there, because we had to remember that many of our kids were behind going into private schools. So we had to make sure that the teachers and administrators at private schools understood that they did need to catch up. I know in my son's case, the couple of years he attended private school, he really needed a little extra tutoring, a little extra work, but he eventually did very well before he went on to charter school, because like in the movie, I couldn't afford a private school. And I knew that there was another way to do it, which is what got me started talking about making sure there was a scholarship program for parents that wouldn't fall into the same place I fell into. It was hurtful and embarrassing to take him out of school. And, you know, I actually remember that day very well, which is depicted perfectly in the movie. When I told them that I just couldn't pay it and asked if, maybe I could pay it later, something could be worked out. And they said no. They had given me chance after chance, and this was a great school that I love it. But they had to do what they had to do, so I did have to take them out. And it was a very hurtful day. And Uzo portrays that really well. I'm not a big crier. I don't cry a lot, and especially publicly. And when she started crying in the movie, I cried with her because I remember how that felt.
Yeah.
So I went on for several years till 2011. I ran DC Parents for School Choice along with some amazing parents, and we continued to support parents that had gotten scholarships. By the time I left in 2011, we were, I think that we had worked with or talked to 10,000 parents. It was just scores and scores of parents. I moved back to Arkansas in 2011. This is where I'm from. And I work with parents and kids in the food program now. And I travel the country and talk to parents about using their voices and standing up to the bureaucracy. And so that's kind of what happened afterwards.
How did you, one of the part of what you were saying that really stuck with me is the fact that, William was already done by the time you were finishing that up. And, this is something that we encounter in our work all the time. We meet parents who are in crisis and begin working with us. And I think we're always from the beginning, really clear with people that policy change takes a long time. And that's evident in what you just described. How did you hang on? And who were some of the, were all the people that you enlisted help from, were they all current parents, or, what kind of a group was it?
The parents that started with me in this fight, it was a group of about 25 to 50 parents that did the initial fighting early on, and this took years. And it took a year once we had gotten the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program, which was the one that passed. It took a year to fight for that one, but we had been fighting for several years before then. And the parents that started with me stayed with me. Most of them, like my child, by the time we finished fighting and getting this to a point where it was going to look like it was going to pass, our kids were grown up. Our kids were gone. But we believed early on that even though we got into this fighting for our particular child, we had to fight for every child. And so most of the people that started with me went the full distance. They were with me at the end. And when the program was actually implemented, when it passed, when it was implemented, and many of those parents even later, when we were going out in the community signing parents up for the program, were with me then. So, and it was hundreds. It was a lot of people. We organized 2,000 people, and parents and supporters, and it was an amazing effort. And they once they saw that there was somebody that was serious about helping and serious about standing with them, and I'm talking about school choice organizations and members of Congress, once they believed that this was something that could be done, it was done.
Right.
And they hung around. I'm still in touch with parents that started this fight with me. And at the DC premiere of the movie, dozens of them were there. And it's a fight when it gets in your system. It's hard to stop.
Yes. You I want to remind people that we're talking to Virginia Walden Ford, real Miss Virginia here on Seam Cares, our Facebook Live effort. And I want to recognize Carmen, who we know really well and love. Carmen was asking how did you deal with adversity? She's got a second question. How did you deal with adversity in the beginning of the movement? And then later on, she was asking, what advice would you give to new organizations trying to navigate, the political minefield that school choice is?
Adversity, like the opposition, we tell our stories, and that's something I think people don't get. You tell your story, and these people are the opposition has always they're parents, they're people. If you can sit down and talk to them with dignity and with information, then you can get people to listen to you. And I don't mean to make it sound easy, because it wasn't. Sometimes we had to talk several times, but for the most part, I realized, and the parents that were working with beside me realized early on, that we couldn't let anybody tell us to go away. And so our position was go in, talk to people. There's a scene in the movie where she goes in to try to get an appointment with the congressman. And she's told that he doesn't have time till December, and this probably was in September. And then she sat down, and then she got up and left when the receptionist kind of made a face. We never left. We went in the offices, we signed guest books, we talked our heads off to people that would listen to us, and sometimes people didn't want to listen to us. As far as the people that were really in opposition and who were really mean, sometimes threatening, we chose not to acknowledge that. We chose to continue to carry ourselves in the best way possible. I remember we had a hearing, and the teachers union had a lot of, I have a dog, I'm sorry.
Okay, me too.
And the teachers union was very mean to us. And some of the parents were really upset. And so I told them, we don't yell back. We carry ourselves with dignity. We have incredible information that we can give to these members of Congress. So, they used to tease me and say, I never stopped talking. And I didn't. I talked, but I talked with knowledge, I told my story. I said, look, I have a child who's failing in school, and I need something different for him, period. And sometimes that's all I'd say. How can you help us, And then you also have to, a reporter told me one time, if you yelling and screaming and being ridiculous, they'll take your picture and they'll put you on the news. But that's the last time they will do that. And you lose credibility if you act in a manner like that, So I learned that early, and I learned that I would be sweet and kind and not disrespectful to people. And my mother used to always say, everybody has an opinion, you should respect it. And as hard as that was, and it was real hard, I did. I'd say, I respect your opinion, but here's mine. And I would be full of information. And we changed a lot of minds for the simple fact that we won this fight. We had to have changed a lot of minds.
Yeah.
So that, and I prayed a lot. So and I tell the parents that whenever somebody attacks you or whenever somebody's mean to you, you pull out that picture of your child and you look at that picture and remember who you're fighting for. And then, every time I looked at the picture, William, it calmed me down, because I said, if I mess this up, then he's going to be affected, and it will calm me down. That sounds crazy, but it does.
We're on Facebook Live with Virginia Walden Ford, the real Miss Virginia, and Valerie Cheers Brown was just commenting as my phone switched screens on me, telling you that there is a lot of love for you here in St. Louis. Valerie was saying, "I can't believe you're here, and welcome, and thank you for all your work and everything you did for kids who are number one." And she's nice seeing you here, of course. The same with Del Rio and Carmen and Crystal, who are all with us today on Facebook. If folks have questions for Virginia, they definitely can ask them here on Facebook Live with us. And I can hear you.
It's a pleasure for me to be here. There's nothing I like better than to share with parents. I mean, you know, when I think I could accomplish much. I thought the issue was just way too big. And I remember saying that to a friend who said to me, it'll be big until you start trying to do something. And then it gets smaller and smaller, and you get more and more confident. You know? So it's a pleasure to be here with you. I try to be everywhere I can be to talk to parents. That has always been, I love working with parents, and I loved doing this movie. It is, I'm getting older, and this is my legacy to you all. And I hated the thought that when I retired, that my voice would not be heard. And I wanted to be able to share some of the lessons I learned on this journey of mine. And so it's my pleasure to be here with you.
You know, we're a lot of people who are watching, and those of us that seem are involved in this fight. And getting back to the issue, you know, itself, that the heart of the issue is parental choice in education. You know, how do you talk about, or how do you address kind of the debate of one type of schooling being offered, you know, AKA traditional public schools, you know, versus parents and children having a choice? And just so I can let you talk and not interrupt you, you know, also through the African-American lens, where I think there is this sort of implied allegiance to traditional public schools. I feel like it must have been even tougher for you. But so that's kind of a big question, but.
Okay. Well, I believe in every delivery system of education, but it has to be quality education. I never put down any delivery system. Public schools, traditional public schools, charter schools, private schools, homeschooling, online schooling. If it provides a child with what they need to thrive, I support it. You know, I don't want parents to ever think that they have to choose a private school because a movie was made about a scholarship program. I think every parent is the first teachers of our children. We know our children. We know what they need. At one point, I had stepchildren, and I had 5 boys, and they went to 5 different schools. One was in private school, one was in traditional public school, 3 were in charter schools. And because we chose schools, their father and I chose schools that were in their best interest and where we thought that they would thrive. So I support all kinds of educational environments. You know, that the question about whether we should be serving only African-American children, especially for me, because I am African-American. At some point early on in school choice movement, maybe 20 years ago, I felt like we should serve the neediest of the children. And it just so happened in DC, in many states and cities, low-income kids were mostly African-American. And then it became most kids were African-American and Hispanic. Then it became most kids were African American, Hispanic, and Asian, and on and on and on. So at some point in fighting for children, I understood that I had to fight for not just children that look like me, but for all children. America's children deserve advocates such as myself, at least, to fight for them all. So I fight for rural kids in Arkansas and St. Louis, and in Missouri, and I fight for urban kids, and I fight for all kids, all colors, all cultures. And but I get sometime, and you may too, sometimes African American leaders don't understand it. They don't understand this fight is not just about Black kids anymore. It's about every kid. And so I'm pretty committed to fighting for every child. I do understand the fights of the past. I was a part of some of them. I was in high school. I went to segregated schools until 10th grade. And then I went to a desegregated school in 10th grade, and Little Rock Central High School, where the Little Rock Nine had attended. And people just assume everything got great after Brown versus Board of Education and Little Rock Nine got through and all of that. But 10 years later, now I'm dealing with my age, but 10 years later, I went to Central and I had so many difficulties. It was scary. I was intimidated. I was 14. And my daddy said to me, and this is something I will never forget. He said, you have to go there. Because I was saying, I don't want to be there. He said, you have to go there. The reason you have to go there is because you have younger siblings. And if you don't go there and do your best, how is the world going to look at all of us? And so as I grew older and as I began to fight this tremendous, wonderful fight for William, I started seeing that we have to change the thoughts of people. We have to make sure, and this was 2000, in the early 2000s, we have to make sure that the world understands that the fight is not just for Black kids, but for every child. America's children deserve to be in schools that best meet their needs, and I need that from the bottom of my heart. So I fight for all children, and I do. What were you saying, Pete?
Virginia, what do you, so we hear this a lot in our work. What do you say to people who, and they usually say this out of earshot, away from any actual low-income people, families, they, who say low-income parents cannot make an informed decision about something as important as education?
Well, first, that's the one thing that makes me really angry. And what I say to them is low income, middle income, everybody loves their children. And everybody can make those kind of decisions based on that love. When I first started doing this, we were going to community recruiting parents. And one of the things I used to say, and we put them on flyers, if you have questions about what you want for your child, bring them to the meeting, let us know. I'll answer every question. And oh my gosh, they would come, and these were in public housing projects in DC, some of the poorest communities in DC. They come to meetings with pages of things they wanted for their children. And they were the same things I wanted for mine. And you have to remember that I was a low-income parent, and I know what I wanted for my children. I was blessed with a family that could support me. But I was in DC, they were in Arkansas, and I had to make decisions for my children myself. And I hadn't always made the best decisions about my life. So, one could say that I might not have been able to choose the best schools for my children. But I'm gonna tell you, I knew what my kids needed. They're my kids. And I knew that in talking to my neighbors, we all felt strongly about being able to choose the right schools for our kids. I think that is the most horrible thing that can be said to a parent, and because it's not true. So I am passionately opposed to ever saying that, or ever even trying to respond to that, because it's just stupid to me. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, who can tell a parent who has taught their children how to roll and walk and talk, and that they can't choose a school for their children? That's just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and yet it is said a lot, and it is said out of earshot. But I think low-income family, I think any parent is the best chooser of schools for their kids of anybody.
I agree. The question itself, is I think rooted in a misunderstanding of what actually happens once a law does get passed, and that is that it's like any law that gets passed. People have to hear about it. They have to receive information about it. Some of that was depicted in the movie at the end where, they were giving out information about the program. And so, of course, people have to become aware of a new law. But I'm with you 100%. The idea that a parent is unable to, choose an educational setting that makes the most sense for their child and family seems crazy to me. Do you, today, you, Miss Virginia, are a role model for other parent organizers, and some of my favorite Missouri parent organizers are watching today on Facebook Live. I know you're a public speaker and a general source of wisdom. What do you make of the current generation of parent advocates that you meet and work with and advise? And if you have examples, who is doing really great work that you can tell about?
Well, first, I really love sharing with people that are younger than me. I mean, I do believe as you get older that you learn a lot of things in life, and I'm older. And I think over the years that I've learned a lot of things that I could share with people. Generally, every parent I've met, and I've met hundreds that are in organizations around the country, I just really like working with people, and they have wonderful ideas, and sometimes I caution them on little things, I give little bits of advice. And that's why I always urge people, I'm not trying to sell a book, but to read my books, because I try to write some things that I think help parent organizations thrive. There's an organization in Memphis, and I work with Kara Harris, and Memphis Link is the organization, but Sarah Carpenter runs it, and she's my age, or she may be a little old. Well, I don't know how but she's about my age. But Kara is young, like my kids. Sarah, if you're out there, I'm sorry. And I think that what young people running organizations, and young, I mean 50 and under, running organizations that are trying to fight, just should remember one thing. We were warriors. We didn't take no for an answer. We said there is nothing you can do to change us from fighting for our children. We were soldiers, and so using your voice and speaking out with power is what gets you where we got. A reporter once said I was tough and persistent, and I thought, hey, that's cool, because nobody ever called me tough. I'm kind of a girly girl actually, but I think that they're doing a great job. But listen to other people, not just me, but other people that have been in this movement for a long time. They've been through a lot. We learned by fighting the actual fights. We were in the midst of fights as we were learning. When I first started, I remember calling Zukia Courtney. Milwaukee was the first school choice city. And I remember calling Zakia Courtney, who was the leader of the parent organization, and saying, help me, ask for help. I sure did. I remember calling Susan Mitchell, Zakia, anybody that would talk to me, I would ask for advice. I never went into something thinking I knew all the answers, I knew everything. Use the people that have been in the past that have made sure that there are 30 programs around the U.S. and D.C. and those people fought. And so I think that if people rely on their own energy, their own passion, their own power, but also listen to some of, like the old people say, some of the elders, and and find out it might be something we say that could help you with your fight. You know, it might be something we could suggest that would help you with your fight. And I think that's what even though I think all the people that I've met along the way in the last couple of years are amazing people, but you know, it never hurts to have an extra little bit of advice. I sure thought it was important.
I met you at a conference a few years ago. What is your what's your current work look like now, Miss Virginia? What are you doing these days? And are you working directly with parent organizations and still traveling, or what are you doing?
Of course, I'm not traveling right now, but I am setting up travel engagement
Right.
travel engagement for the starting about October. I figure by then everything will be back to whatever the normal's going to be. But I also do this. You know, I do Zoom meetings with parents, and I do telephone conference calls with parents. And before all of this started, I traveled to 33 cities to do questions and answers with the movie because I thought it was really important to answer questions like this. You know, people see a movie and then they go, oh, did that really happen? Well, I assure you that it happened and more. And but sometimes people just need to see the face of somebody to give themselves confidence. I've gotten incredibly beautiful letters from parents that said, I've been doing this for a while. I needed some inspiration. Your movie and your voice has inspired me. So I do what I can to help. I'm not through yet.
Have you, in your experience, we talk a lot about school choice as kind of like an urban issue with the concentration of people and, the large school districts. Have you had a chance to work with anyone who's trying to implement or work on school choice things in more rural settings?
I do. I'm in Arkansas, and so I've been doing a lot of that over the last few years, talking with people, trying to help them. I also work with the online school because sometimes in rural areas that's a good choice. I work with I'm on the board of directors of Connections Academy, and so that a lot of the kids that are attending the school here in Arkansas, the online school, are from the rural areas. And those are schools where they have to go 40 miles to go to school. We have one group of 18 kids that that own the rodeo circuit. So, yeah, I mean, I go anywhere anybody asks me. I can't tell you how many small towns I've been in over the last 20 years. And because I've been doing this for 20 years. And I will continue to talk with parents. You can write me, I'll write back. And it's been an amazing journey for me, and I will continue to do it. But rural communities really have a little bit of my heart here. And Little Rock's a big city, but most of Arkansas is not. And so my friends come from all over. And so, yeah, we work with rural communities. I think Missouri is similar to Arkansas in the setup. They don't have a lot of real big cities, but have a lot of little towns, if I remember correctly. And so those are the communities that oftentimes don't get the kind of information that is needed for them to access any information about options or what they could do for their children. So we, myself, along with all the school choice organizations, are really working in a lot of rural communities. And I pretty much, if I can, travel and help anybody.
So we're in the middle of this crisis here as we kind of wrap up with you tonight. Any observations from you, lessons that you think we're learning from this current crisis that maybe will help us navigate things moving forward?
You know, somebody said to me the other day, I'm teaching my kids from 10 to 2 and they're mad at me, or 10 to 4, whatever it was. And all my kids are mad at me. And I said, well, then relax, you know, put some fun things in between. On Friday, my grandchildren are in Dallas. So on Friday, we go on Zoom, and my twin sister, who is a retired teacher, does a lesson with my grandchildren on Friday afternoon. And what my son needed was something that was less stressful than what they're doing with their school, which is an amazing school that, you know, gives some great lessons that he's teaching. His wife's a doctor, so he's doing teaching. And we do this little lesson with the kids that's just fun. You know, we do stories, we do crafts, and so I urge parents that are really stressed about all of this that's going on and teaching children and having to do their jobs at home and whatever, or their essential work for essential areas and need to be gone. Just lighten up a little bit. I mean, yeah, this is serious and we should take it seriously. But children need to be children in all of this. And so as I listen to parents who call me daily or text me daily or send me on Messenger daily, that's what I say. I say, enjoy the time with your children. You will never have this time, but you got to look at it that way. You know, you can't look at it in the negative ways. You know, right now I'm quarantined with 2 of my sisters who I realized the other day, we never have these long conversations, and but you got to look at it that way. You know, a bunch of trips got canceled for me, and I could be saying, oh, man, I wish I could have gone on this trip. But what I'm doing is what my mom used to always say, making making lemonade out of lemons, and that's what we have to do. We have to take this time, certainly do what we need to continue the education of our children, but also continue loving your family. You know, my philosophy in life is faith, love, and you know, energy. You know, so
Right.
I want to be. I'm faith. I'm really strong faith, and I love everybody. But you know, we want to do things. So we play games around here, and we laugh and talk, and sometimes we go out in our backyard and sit and look at the sky. And sometimes I think, you know, somebody can call me today and said, I'm sick of my children. You know, and I said, yeah, I'm a person to be saying it too. And she said, no, you know what I mean? You know, I can't do this. I'm working at home, I'm teaching the kids, and it's just really hard, Mr. Day. And I'm like, well, you know, if you keep complaining about how hard it is going to continue to be hard.
Right.
But if you say to yourself, this is the time that I'm spending with my kids, I guarantee it'll feel a little bit better. And this is hard. And, you know, I'm not trying to make it, you know, look like it isn't. But what you do will determine how it's going to be the next time.
Yes, that's so true, Virginia. I mean, you know, every time back when I was, you know, working in summer camps, you know, one kid who kept pointing out how hot it was and how hot they were and how uncomfortable they were because it was so hot. and they would just go on, and everyone would finally just say, yeah, we know it's it's hot, but let's focus on something else. And yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's so true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
we got to.
You know, I bless every. Okay, I just want to say I bless every parent. I appreciate your love for me. I feel it. Y'all don't even know how much I feel it. And I hope I'll see you soon. And this has been so wonderful.
Wait, don't hang up though. So that was just my intro into like a 5-minute wrap up. So not like I'm wrapping up with you off the phone. So one of our parent advocates was asking, how do I speak with parents who have been led to believe that a school choice takes away funds from public schools, leading to school closings and neighborhood blight? I'm sure you've heard that question.
Oh yeah, we hear that all the time. And what you have to do first, that isn't true. And you can merely say that's not true. But then they're going to say, well, why do you say it's not true? It's really important to have the information that you need. And Peter can get information, or any of us, here in Little Rock, schools are funded one way. So if school choice program is enacted, where are those funds coming from is public record. So it's really important to find out exactly what's going on. Remember I said earlier that we went to Congress and talked to them packed with information. We knew how the scholarship program was going to be funded. We knew how it was going to affect schools. We knew, we had information. So if you're an activist out there, the most important thing is having all the information you need.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. We do have that information, and people can go to seamteam.org. That's our website, CEAMTEAM.org, SEAM Team. And we do have information about private school choice and all the other kinds of choice, because our organization supports a full range of choice within the public district, from magnet schools to open enrollment and charter public schools, as well as private school choice and virtual learning and homeschooling. I think that's all of them. There might be others. I really want to thank everybody. Our friend Denisha Merriweather was tuned in and was watching you, and she says hi, Virginia. And so we're a lot of St. Louis area advocates working with SEAM and others. So I want to thank everybody who tuned in today. And Virginia, I really want to thank you. Any parting words?
Keep fighting, stand strong, be empowered. That's how I live my life.
That's a good way to be. That's a good way to be. All right. Well, thank you. And I want to thank everyone who tuned in. And we'll see you next week. We're going to talk with some private school leaders and talk to them about what the COVID epidemic means to them and their schools. So thanks, everyone. And thanks, Ms. Virginia. We'll see everybody else next week. So thank you.
Bye-bye.